GM. Hello. How are you doing today, Logan?
GM, I'm doing good. I'm doing
Great
great.
to hear. Great to
How
hear.
you how are you doing?
Doing great. Excited to be here. Was sad that we didn't have this last week, so now we're back, and that's what it's all about. So very excited to be back. Well, welcome everyone to the latest Lilypad AMA. Super excited to have everybody here. We will get started here in just a second. We wanted to make sure that everyone has enough time to jump in here, but let's get going. Why am I not able to share? That would explain it. Oh, my dark reader. Nice. All right. Welcome, everybody. Got to love those developer tools. You know, they end up making your screen dark and then you got to change it. All right. Well, welcome, everyone, to the latest Lilypad AMA. As usual, we are here today to talk about the latest and greatest at Lilypad. What's the Lilypad network up to? What are some of the cool developments going on? And then what's going on in the world of AI and AI compute? That's something that I think by now everyone realizes Logan and I are pretty passionate about. So let's jump right in. So first, we always like to start by talking about what's the vision of Lilypad? Why are we here? What are we doing here? Very simple. We want to create accessible, efficient, permissionless, open compute for the world, and more specifically for developers and users, businesses who are leveraging AI models to run various types of AI inference. You know, we're talking about generating images, talking about even like folding proteins, talking about training AI agents, talking about getting into AI inference and fine tuning. So really, the Lilypad network aims to be sort of your backend, your go-to place to run serverless distributed compute. We're building a global permissionless distributed compute network underpinned by crypto economics. We are currently in our incentivized testnet phase and are continuing to grow. So that's been really, really exciting. Our sort of North Star is to enable internet scale data processing for AI and ML and other arbitrary compute. And our GPU marketplace helps to unleash idle processing power. We understand that there's a significant gap in between the demand for GPUs and the supply, whether that be idle resources not being used, GPUs sitting around, or users looking for GPUs and not getting access to them. And so we've seen this problem time and time again, even internally. When we use standard cloud providers to spin up GPU clusters, we end up having problems getting access to compute. And so the Lilypad network, we've built a GPU marketplace and all the tooling required to orchestrate that. And then on top, we're building a software platform to enable developers, machine learning researchers, and businesses to leverage the compute to very, very simply run AI models, train AI models, and grow their business. So real quick, we can get into the Lilypad stack. It's a pretty straightforward model, and so we essentially leverage or bridge compute clients with compute demand. Pretty simple, right? On the left hand side here, we have some awesome developer tools. We have a CLI, smart contracts, an API, and SDK are in the works. And as I mentioned, the SaaS layer is also in the works. Our focus is really on the end users here. It's really how do we make it easy for developers to not just leverage a crypto-based compute network, but just to leverage a compute network that makes it really easy to run AI models using Docker, to fine-tune these models, to share the models with the community, to monetize the models, and everything in between. So we're really excited to support this, and we have some awesome work in the works that we continue to support this. So the architecture in the middle is pretty amazing. The solver on top does all the off-chain market matching. That's where the jobs get created and matched when they come in from the CLI to the actual compute providers. The smart contracts deal with payments, escrow, the upcoming ERC20 token that will be launched, deal details, and the controller. And something that we're figuring out now in our incentivized testnet, sort of the right way to do things is with regards to the mediator. So the Lilypad network was originally based on the Modicum paper. Fascinating paper. I recommend everybody go check it out. That's been sort of the foundation for the Lilypad architecture and how we decided to build things, which would include a mediator. And the mediator, as you would expect, validates a job output at random when challenged. And so we currently will be running a mediator from the Lilypad team to essentially run compute jobs across the network on various cards to make sure they're there, to make sure that they run the output successfully, and then also to make sure that the output is actually correct within the context of what we would expect to see. So that could be a little bit of a tricky one, but that's something that we're actively working on. And very interesting kind of side of this, decentralized compute world is sort of the mediators. And then, of course, at the very bottom, you see the module marketplace. So this is something that will be part of the SaaS product, as far as I understand, which would be, you can think of it almost like as a decentralized Hugging Face. We aim to provide a place for module discovery. So for creators of modules to have their models be discovered, but then, taking it even further down the line, actually helping people run the models that are being discovered in this marketplace, right? And so that's taking shape right now, but we've got some amazing product being worked on by some very talented engineers. And so keep an eye out for that module marketplace. It's very exciting. So our standard call to action, if you've been on the AMA before, you've probably heard this, so I'll make it quick. We are currently running our Lilypad incentivized testnet. So join the network with a GPU and earn Lilybit credits. These Lilybit credits will be redeemable for ERC20 tokens. Maybe a few small caveats there, but generally speaking, the IncentiveNet program provides Lilybits to resource providers and also now the community, but we'll mention that later, to run on the network and provide uptime. GPUs run a proof of work every hour, and then there's actually every 2 hours, and then there's also like a random POW that runs to make sure that, one, we know that the GPU is online and available, but then two, we can actually measure the hash rate of the GPU to be able to determine how powerful is this GPU, how many rewards should this GPU get. We are making improvements to that mechanism. Stay tuned. There's some awesome new stuff coming that will solve some of the complexities that we're facing with regards to this process. But right now, the mechanism is as is. We did change the slashing mechanism. There's now a grace period. So before, if you were down for 24 hours, you were slashed 10% of your total rewards. Now you'll have a 2-day grace period for every 30 days of RP uptime. So if you're a resource provider and you're committed to the network long term, as we've seen a lot have been, then you will earn those 2 days of grace period for RP maintenance, for updates. Maybe you want to go on vacation, I don't know. But those 2 days are your 2 days. Unfortunately, you can't bank more than 2 days. And so there is a little bit of a limit there, but we wanted to make it fair for RPs who, this is life, right? And then on top of that, there's some more slashing changes that are being tested right now that will be coming down the pipeline, I assume this week, but potentially early next week, which will reduce that 10%. So we believe that the 10%, based on community feedback and based on internal discussions, the 10% is a little bit extreme for slashing. And so especially for RPs who've been on the network for a long time. And so we'll have a more progressive tier slashing where, the first day of a downtime, assuming you've already used or don't have the grace period days, would be a lot less than 10%. And then as you are offline for more days, that slashing percentage will go up. So probably a lot more fair. And as you can see on the right, check out info.lilypad.tech. That's the leaderboard that shows all the RPs on the network. There's a really beautiful map too of the nodes globally. So go check that out. You can really see where the Lilypad network lives. And we have some awesome resources for the IncentiveNet RPs, and RPs being resource providers. So of course, the leaderboard, the main sort of source of truth for the Lilybit program is the blog here in the middle, Lilybit Rewards Have Landed. We are working on a V2 of that to sort of a refresh update with some of the new mechanisms that are being pushed. And so just stay tuned for that. More information is coming. And then, of course, jump into the Lilypad Discord. It's been so much fun to hang out with all the resource providers and the community in there. I'm just blown away by the level of technical expertise of the community here. Like, I think there's a lot of Discord channels that are kind of a lot of fluff or maybe a lot of weird stuff. Whereas in our Discord, even in general, but in the I Need Help section, in the open source channel, across all the community channels, it's really been amazing. I think, Logan, I know you spend a lot of time in the hardware channel. I know there's all kinds of fun hardware talk going on. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I didn't check it today, but I know that anyway.
I reposted. Yeah, I reposted the Fast and the Furious GPU meme that has been circling around the Twitter Spaces, and
you did.
Yeah, hopefully that's hopefully that's taken well. We'll see. I'll have to check in on that.
No, that meme is too good. That it's a live action video of a race going on with a bunch of GPUs, with a bunch of humans that are labeled as GPUs, and man, it's way too funny.
Yeah, go to the, if you're watching and you feel like you want to see the meme, head to the hardware channel within the Lilypad Discord. Go check it out.
Yeah.
It's a super funny YouTube meme.
Oh yeah. And then of course at the bottom row, it's all of our documentation in a blog. The Lilypad docs have been in sort of a work in progress, but we feel like they're pretty good right now. They at times have gotten a little crazy. As things change, we end up adding new recommendations or new specs or new requirements. So just keep an eye on that. But right now, everything's nominal and good to go. So the open source program has been amazing. It's been so cool to see all the contributions from, contributing to the Lilypad main repo, all the way to building tools for the Lilypad network for RPs, to contributing community bots. We've got a bunch of bots now that the community has set up. Thank you. Shout out to the ambassadors, especially Rodebreck, who helped us make a lot of those bots to help monitor, different contracts that Lilypad uses and some of our servers for the core infrastructure. So this has been amazing. And so as a thank you to the open source community, what we've decided to do is provide Lilybit rewards once a month to the contributors based on a few factors. So we look at all of the contributions that have been made across these repos, and typically we tag each contribution with a community tag. So you'll see if you go into, for example, the Lilypad main repo and filter by the community tag, you'll be able to see all the different issues that we've labeled for the community to take up. We are open to the community creating new issues and bringing up issues that are important to work on, and we can help greenlight that. But we've made it easy to check out what's going on with the community tag. And actually, in the open source Discord, if you check that out in the open source channel, there's a really cool bot that basically lists like a leaderboard of like who's contributed. It's basically the same group, and then what issues are available and have not been assigned, and then which ones have been assigned. And so it's really fun to see like what work is ongoing, who's doing what, and it's a very interactive community. So get involved. No contribution is too small. Although I will say, we'll merge a PR if you find a typo in our docs, but unfortunately we won't be giving Lilybit rewards for that, which I think is kind of fair. But again, that doesn't mean that you can't have the Lilypad organization on your GitHub for contributing a typo fix. So I would say do it.
That's a huge deal. Huge deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But anyway, the way that these numbers were calculated, I'm sure people are wondering. We made it really simple because it is a bit hard to quantify contributions. Plus, we have so many that, and expecting more over time, that for the team to sit there and be like, oh well, this is worth this, this is worth this. It's pretty difficult. So we have the engineering team and the DevRel team cross-referencing the issues that we've been marked as community issues and that have been brought up, and easy, medium, hard, and then different categories like ops, Web3, internal, bots, whatever. And then the Lilybit rewards are allocated based on those categories. And where we sort of anchored this is we found that a 4090 on the network, on the Lilypad network, earns around 5,000 Lilybits per day. Of course, that changes. The POW is variable, so the hash rate is variable, so the rewards are variable. But sort of an average. And of course, every 2 weeks, the phase changes. And so the total number of Lilybits earned reduces by 10%. So that 5,000 figure is a rough approximation. And so we were like, okay, well, if 5,000 Lilybits are earned for 140.90 for 1 day's worth of work, how does that compare to these contributions? And we use that as sort of a baseline for figuring out these numbers. And then we also added a bit of a bonus for these early contributors as a thank you. So, there's some alpha there. The earlier you contribute, the better. The other program that's been super awesome is the Lilypad Ambassadors program. Actually, a lot of the open source contributors are also ambassadors. It's been so awesome to work with the community and have such a talented group of ambassadors to help sort of expand the reach of the DevRel team and get work done too, helping out the engineering team. So join as a Lilypad ambassador. And the way to do that is really to just contribute in the Discord, help answer questions, help problem solve, bring up issues, contribute to some of these open source initiatives, and your work does not go unnoticed. We see who's there. We are greatly appreciative of it. And so, keep up the hard work, but do reach out if you want to be an ambassador and you think you have a great case. Feel free to DM me, feel free to write, a message in the, the general chat, or just DM one of us. And we're looking to grow the ambassador program, and we will be giving ambassadors Lilybit rewards as well. especially the early ones. And so that is coming this week, I believe, where we will be providing a little bit. So this dashboard here, I meant to say, you can find this dashboard at oss.lilypad.tech. That's the domain. And so go check that out. There will be another tab on there in that website for the ambassador rewards too. So that's very exciting. Keep an eye out for that. We will also be adding an educational reward side of things to that as well. But yes, like Logan just gestured, we can't thank you enough. And of course, we've got a bunch of the contributions on the right here, just to highlight the work of some of these awesome ambassadors. Awesome. So the Meme-a-thon has concluded. It's been awesome to see all these contributions. I mean, so much creativity. I mean, come on, like, you guys are awesome. So I know it was a very, very hard choice. And that the meme in the bottom left is actually a video. So I took a screenshot of it. Unfortunately, didn't have enough time to put it into like a GIF or something. But anyway, these have been awesome, hilarious. These are the top 3 winners. And yeah, I know the marketing team had a lot of fun. I think there was a lot of last minute submissions, and so I think they were like overwhelmed at the end there. And so I know it took them a little bit of time to like get through them all. But yeah, Logan, how are you feeling about these memes? I mean, these are quality. These are good.
Great. 10 out of 10. No denying it. 10 out of 10. Just super funny. The first one is just really funny. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. What else can you say, right? I know. Yeah. So anyway, thanks to everyone for your submissions. So yeah, we wanted to keep this kind of shorter today so that we can talk about more fun stuff. Well, not that this isn't fun, but talk about what's going on at Lilypad, what's going on in the industry. So yeah, get involved. We got the Discord. Go check out our website. Join on, follow us on Twitter. There's a lot going on. If you want to follow like the blogs, we post a lot of information about. We do a project report. We post about the open source program, the master program, all the stuff. So do go check that out. I wanted to open up for questions. Oh my gosh, I haven't had the chat open here. Let's see if we have any questions. We don't at the moment, but hello, Roderick. Hello, Sam. Hello, everybody. GM, thanks for coming. I don't know, Roderick, if you heard, we gave you a shout out earlier already, so you're already up on the board there. Cool. Okay, yeah, you have a question. Hit us with the question. What you got? Well, in the meanwhile, we'll answer your question whenever it comes in. Logan, why don't we start getting into some of the fun stuff? So we have a lot going on the engineering team. We are, working on improving IncentiveNet, growing IncentiveNet, dealing with the scale of, I think there's around 1,700, 1,800 addresses. Of course, right now probably I think about 500 or 600 of them are online. But dealing with the scale of that, orchestrating that, making sure everything is done fairly has been pretty hectic. But we are on top of it. And then, of course, we are steaming towards mainnet. Using everything we're learning to plan the mainnet. The mainnet architecture and plan had already really been figured out months and months ago. But I think the IncentiveNet and what we've learned from the IncentiveNet has really shaped that architecture and that plan moving forward, which, I think we were talking about it, Logan. It's been amazing how much we've learned from IncentiveNet. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it really feels like we've come up with a much more realistic foundation for how the mainnet should work in terms of like the economics, in terms of like how can we even think about pricing? How do we think about incentives? How do we think about anti-cheating mechanisms, right? There's so many things. And the IncentiveNet has been such a great place to stress test a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. Even on the side, on top of what you said, even with the amount of tooling that you need for the vast of different setups that we need, Lilypad is really focused on being an edge client, focused on running on people's computers at their house on edge networks all around the world. But turns out that we kind of need it all in a way for a lot of reasons: latency, for reliability, for trust as well. Having them in the data centers as well. So a whole encompassing set of tools for that. Those setups look a lot different. Telling 10 computers to install Lilypad is a lot different than telling just a single one. So yeah, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, we've been talking about, that's one of the really interesting talks we had this week with the team is, we're like, what's the minimum amount of tooling we need for these large resource providers that have, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 GPUs, and setting them up, keeping them updated, running
Right.
them, maintaining the rewards. I mean, yeah, what
Yeah.
what comes to mind when I say all that?
Right. Like I think when we first started like talking about this like months ago, somebody asked me, they're like, so yeah, like Logan, like how would, somebody set up 10 nodes at once? And I told them, I think I may have been talking to you. I don't know who I was talking to, but I was like, if you have 10 large GPU enabled, servers laying around, you're probably skilled and crafty enough to be able to figure out how to install Lilypad on all 10 of them in a somewhat quick and efficient manner. And yes, while that is true, that we do have a few resource providers who do have many nodes online. It is good for us to come out with that tooling as well, and for us to work on that as well, and to have some documentation to see the limitations of it. But yeah, super interesting to go down that whole endeavor. Super great that we have our version of Docker to possibly make that easier.
Yeah, I think that's sort of going to be the foundation of this, right? Is the Docker RP and making that very scalable.
Right. Indeed.
Yeah.
It seems as if we have some question. We have a question.
Yeah. So yeah, Rodebrek, I'm glad that the Grafana dashboard works for you. So for reference for everybody, if you go to rp-rewards.lilypad.tech, you'll see a dashboard we've created for Lilybit rewards with historical data. So the leaderboard, as I was showing, provides a sum of all the rewards earned for each RP. We realize that RPs want a little more granular information to be able to see like how many points did I earn on any given day. And so we've got this super awesome Grafana dashboard. I can actually pull it up a little bit, but this thing really is a great way to basically know what's going on with your RP. Yeah, so here's the dashboard. Let me grab an address really fast and throw it in there. So yeah, we just give like granular data on what's what. Points earned per day, and this really helps us track. We have had the system's been working really well. But we have had a couple of days of let's call it a hiccup, where the system, due to the tremendous amount of volume that's going on here, tremendous amount of resource providers who jump on the network, and the tremendous amount of volume our systems are handling in terms of all of that communication. Some of the systems that were running and some of the programs running on those systems ended up overlapping, especially when one of them ended up looping. I probably won't get into more detail than that because we don't have enough time. But the point is, this thing has been super helpful to give transparency to the program, the Libis program, but then also help us troubleshoot things. And so, yeah, Rod, great to hear that that's useful for you. So your question is, I'm wondering how you've considered if you've considered high traffic could affect query performance. Sometimes public queries can put a lot of pressure on hardware. Okay. Often fields are filtered to manage this. Have you thought about any solutions like caching? Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm assuming that question is with regards to kind of the chattiness of the RP, how many RPC calls we're making, how many times we're hitting the API, the Lilypad API. Logan, is that how you're also interpreting that?
Yeah, I think the third question, talking about caching, I think confuses me a little bit. Because this is like, since it's a deterministic thing that kind of like happens in the past, you can't really cache for it, other than maybe caching GPU power. I think if that makes sense, I guess yes. But yeah, making the network less chatty is something that is a big endeavor. Definitely doing benchmarking, seeing how the network is affected by that's something I was doing this week, was stress testing our hypothetical networks to see what a lot of jobs do. I feel like it's a pretty reasonable endeavor to try to make our solver, or et cetera, our resource providers possibly as efficient as possible as we can.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of goes back in reference to some of the issues we're having with our RPC calls to our Arbitrum. Saving all the stuff on chain. It feels like we've kind of pushed through that. We've got some good solutions, but yeah, we are aware that our system is very chatty, and it affects our internal databases too. So yeah, so Rod's actually asking about specifically about that Grafana dashboard and about the queries made to check their points, right? So
Oh,
right, Grafana usage and live queries. Yeah, it's a great question, and actually, I feel like this is a good question too for the leaderboard, not just the Grafana dashboard, because I've noticed that. So the leaderboard um, loads a lot of data all at once. It loads all of the RPs and all of their information at once. We're fixing that. We know that there's a lot of things we can do to make that better. I have noticed before we fixed it, I've noticed that at the time that the rewards are supposed to drop, so at 00:10 UTC, so that's 10 minutes after midnight UTC, the Lilybit rewards go for the day. And so I've noticed around that time, the leaderboard sometimes can get overwhelmed with requests. And I imagine it just makes sense, right? You got, could potentially 1,000 people refreshing that page, loading all that data. So yeah, we are working on that. Have you noticed, Rod? I'll be interested to hear. So he said, let's suppose 1,000 users come at the same time to check their points on the Grafana dashboard. So RP points or RP-points.Lilypad Tech. How would that perform? It's a great question. I think, to be honest, we haven't stress tested it. Roderick, it would be great to hear if you've noticed any kind of inconsistencies there.
I would be very hard pressed to believe. I'm sorry to interrupt. I would say, like, as long as we have that being hosted on a somewhat reasonable server, which I would assume the gentleman who has set this up was reasonable in the server that he set up, I would suppose that it could get quite a good amount of traffic. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But for the leaderboard, that's a lot more of a technical and a lot more custom of a setup, and so that's going to behave a lot differently than I would assume our Grafana dashboard would be. Very, very performant.
Yeah, and it's also good too because as you saw when I just showed, like you load one wallet, you load the entries for one wallet at a time,
right? So, instead of every single one of them at once.
Right. I mean, to be fair, the leaderboard, it doesn't show the daily rewards. So, but yeah, it shows the rewards for all resource providers, and so
right. There's a few of them now. Yeah, just to I think shout out and clarify as well. Big thanks to all of the resource providers who have pushed through and trudged along through all of the leaderboard and proof of work inconsistencies that we've had the past few weeks. Big shout out to all of you. Really, you guys helped us figure it out. You guys worked with us while we figured it out. But yeah.
Yeah. The wild thing is, like, so of course, when our engineers produce new features, new updates, they test them, right? We have sort of a local net that developers on our team will test things, right? And then once the new version has been compiled, all the PRs have been put into one, then the DevRel team actually goes in and tests the sort of the binary that's going to be like the new release. And so, yeah, even as recently as like the last update, we did that. And we've got sort of like an internal local net that we use with that we're actually scaling up now because of what I'm about to say. But we pushed the update, and interestingly enough, we didn't notice a problem with what was the issue? Now I'm not remembering. It was something to do with Bacalao, if I believe correctly. But anyway, an issue was discovered that has now been addressed, so no stress at all. That we didn't they had discovered in production that we didn't discover in testing, and the reason was production has 1,700 addresses on it. It has 500 or 600 at least online right now, chatting. Right, our local testing had maybe one GPU. So I have to give Logan a shout out here and Arson from the team. They've scaled up our internal. We're calling it DevNet, so our internal testing systems. And so Roderick, I know you had asked about this, but I'm sure everyone in the community is interested to know like what our testing processes look like. And so yeah, we're now doing our best to simulate and get a bunch of GPUs from our team onto that DevNet so that we can do a much better job of simulating the testnet before we push updates. Because obviously we want that to go as smoothly as possible. And there's just some things that are hard to simulate until they're in production. And so anyway, we're doing our best. We're learning from what happens, and then we're doing our best to improve our internal testing environments. So I know that's been going well. I'm really proud of the team for pushing through that. But yeah, Logan, I think we should get into some more juicy, details on what's going on in the industry. We at Lilypad are, very heads down focused on the work we have in front of us. We are also aware that the AI industry, the semiconductor industry, the world of GPUs, the world of now, AI ASIC, I guess we call them, right? AI inference cards built specifically for that is sort of booming and exploding. So yeah, where do you think we should start? I know you had a bunch of topics you wanted to bring up.
I mean, I had some pretty boring but interesting to me topics, but we can start with like the more juicier stuff. I think I had some questions to throw out that were kind of interesting. But yeah, you would like me to start? I can certainly. I have a few topics.
Yeah, go for it. I have a couple ideas, but yeah, go for it.
Sure. So I guess 3.5 weeks or so ago, we all of us in the world, I don't know, in meat space here on planet Earth, we got the release. ChatGPT or OpenAI announced the release of their new model called O1. And so we've been using it for the past 3.5 or so weeks, almost 4 weeks. I just want to throw out to everyone in the chat, Alex, what does everyone think? I mean, I don't know how keyed in or how tuned in people are to the news about this new model O1.
Yeah. I mean, we're always watching to see like what are the latest models coming out of like for example from Llama or from ChatGPT and stuff. And then like, does it make sense to add them as like a Lilypad module? I know you're working on like an SDXL Turbo right now to run on the network.
Oh yeah, we've got numerous good amounts of SDXL. Very interoperable model. Love it.
Yeah. Now I don't think we would necessarily be running O1 at the moment, right? I don't even know if you can.
Well,
open source.
Yeah. I mean, they say it's OpenAI, but there's no. Yeah, you can't run that. And
that's what I thought,
yeah, their infrastructure is probably really much different.
Yeah, I mean, I found it. I don't know. I found it like inconsistent. Sometimes it's awesome, but like especially for coding tasks, I don't know. Like I feel like Claude ends up serving me a lot better these days. I think this is apparently like a basic thing to do at this point, but I actually moved over from ChatGPT to Claude, like for my paid subscription. I really find that it's better for coding, even like assisting with some writing tasks. I don't know. I find that it's much more useful, even like with O1, which I know uses like reinforcement learning, which I think we wanted to talk about and like talk about the benefits of reinforcement learning and sort of how that's sort of changing how these LLMs work. But I don't know. How have you found it? I feel like you've been using Claude too.
Yeah, I'll use both. Just like if it's a machine that I'm logged into, I'll go to Claude. But if I'm like, logging into Google, it's like you've got to like give them your blood to get in. And so I'll just use like the free. I'll just go to like chatgpt.com to use the free version. And I find for coding tasks, especially compared to the free version of ChatGPT, like in the same scenario, I'd be on a machine that I'm not logged into, so I'm using the free version. I feel like I'm going back a lot less using the free versions, which I find is pretty impressive. But Claude, yeah, you're right. Claude, I mean, I guess, which is surprising. It's pretty awesome how like one model, one product can be that much better. But Claude is very, very concise, very short, very to the point. In my case, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when GPT-4 dropped, it like was like orders of magnitude better than GPT-3 and the other tools that are available. So I remember that, and I was like, wow, that was a wow. And then I don't know, it feels like it's gotten, I don't know if it's like not, if it's gotten worse or if it's just been training on all of our stupid inputs, or I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but it definitely feels like. And then with O1, I was expecting it to be better. But yeah, I guess it's kind of it's a fluid situation. It's not this is this is this. It's kind of an ever-changing thing, it feels like.
Right. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, I was reading like what some people are saying on Reddit, in the
Yeah.
local llama Reddit
Yeah.
subreddit. Sorry. But they were talking about how like ChatGPT is like, for some reason, these people on Reddit know or assume there's a lot of money going into the training of the model. And I can probably like, yeah, I feel like that makes a little sense. I can agree with that, right? If
Yeah.
you're making a lot of money from subscriptions, training is probably like where a lot of that money's going, because training is very expensive. But
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Something else I wanted to talk to you about and get your opinion is obviously we have the new 5090 has been announced, and that is exciting. So this is very relevant for resource providers, right? I think we want 5090s on the Lilypad network. And so yeah, I know you've checked out the specs or at least have seen some leaked information. How does it look? What do you think? Is it really worth it?
is it worth it? I mean, of course. Yeah, 4090s are absurdly expensive. They're absurdly unreasonable if you're not wanting to do, local compute, CUDA parallel jobs. So, right, like if all you like, I have a 4070 Ti that I bought like a year or so ago, and this was really like right when the local ML craze was like starting to get involved. Like Wizard Coder came out and people were doing this on the desktops. ChatGPT would go down and people would be like, "Ha, I'm on my desktop now." And so that's one of the reasons why I got a 4070 Ti. It's like one of the most cost-effective, cost-efficient cards you can get for the money. But basically, I got used to it, and I will occasionally play some video games with it, and it's just absurd. Like a 4070 Ti is crazy. Like I've been playing, you can play a video game on 4K resolution at 120 hertz, which is like insanely fast refresh rate. And that's just like the faster the refresh rate, the harder it is on the card. And this 4070 Ti is like chugging at like 60 frames a second. It doesn't care.
And you're playing some heavy stuff, right? I know you're playing some like Star Citizen, some EVE Online.
Exactly. Like games that are not fun for graphics cards and stuff. And like even the benchmarks put the card as just like, if somebody plays games and they're like, I want a bigger card than a 4070 Ti, I'm just like, what kind of monitor are you using to play this game? Because it's like, you can't really get better. And so 4090s, like I don't see, like for consumers, like I play games, I don't see a 4090 as too much of a like reasonable thing. But if you do any type of ML, any type of parallel processing, it's a complete drag car of a card. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in every way. It may take a lot of power, but for what it does, it's just what NVIDIA has done is purely incredible. As well as the other companies like Apple with their Metal X platform, and even our boys Radeon. Keep it going.
Yeah, we can let's get into that one maybe on the next AMA.
Right.
But so for the 5090 though, I forget how much VRAM is it supposed to be coming with? Do we know?
I don't know. I think this spec. Let's look it up real quick.
Is it 32 or is it?
I would, if it's 32, I'll be really impressed.
Yeah, that sounds big, right? Maybe 16.
Yeah, let's see. No, I think 16 is a little low. Oh wow, you were right. 32.
Oh yeah, Rod knows 32.
32. Wow.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
What's the power? 600 watts.
That's a lot of energy. Yeah.
That's insane.
And it probably has a lot more CUDA and tensor cores than the 4090. I don't know if you have those numbers, but it's all right if you don't.
It's got 768 tensor cores, and these are all, I think, I don't know if these are verified numbers, but these are the
leaks numbers.
The leaks, yeah. But yeah, like a lot of people will scoff at the 600 watt TDP or max power draw, and 600 watts is a lot. But it's the scaling. It's I think it's just like scaling laws. Like, oh, if you want more power, feed it more electricity, and so
Yeah, and I think we're learning a lot about this too, just internally as we test more models, right? As we're running more models on our cards. I mean, yesterday we were even talking about how important it is to have the right motherboard. we just changed out some memory on one of our RPs to, what is it, 64 gigabytes of memory. Like that makes a huge difference for running SDXL. And so, maybe just like tell everyone a little bit about what we learned there and like how you really need fast, or I guess low latency. You need a lot of PCIe.
Definitely. That's exactly a lot of PCIe, especially if you're using more than one GPU. A lot of motherboards, consumer motherboards, there's really, I try to talk a lot about this at Lilypad. There's really two classifications of hardware. There's consumer hardware, and then there's enthusiast hardware, or what sometimes maybe people call a server hardware. But so you have like these two leagues. You've got like the minor leagues, and then in my opinion, in a lot of ways, it's the big leagues, just because it's
like the commercial
it's
servers.
Commercial usage, right? These people are making servers are used to like run, platforms, to run companies, to make money. Consumer platforms are used to be consumed. And so, you have these two classifications. Consumer gear is really only outfitted for the most part for one card. All consumer motherboards, apart from a few of them that are, $400 and above, will primarily only have enough lanes for one GPU. You can run the GPUs at different speed, at I guess like bottlenecked speeds, but that can therein lies a lot of problems, like timing issues, getting the models to run on the cards in the right way will have to be accounted for. So it's just what everybody does is they go to the enthusiast route, and they just simply get a inexpensive nowadays motherboard that can handle multiple GPUs. Makes sense.
Yeah. And why do you think switching out our 32 gigabytes of memory to 64 made such a difference for running SDXL? I mean, it's not that big of a model. I mean, it's big, but it's not like Stable Diffusion Video, or we're not like folding proteins over here.
Yeah, I've got to make the meme. I remember like the meme like flashing in my head when we were talking about this. You were like, Logan, why do we need more RAM? And the tutorial guide that I was using for this model it has like the specs. And in the specs it says like, hey, 40, I got this working using 42 gigs of RAM. And so I think it was 42 gigs. And so in my head, I flashed like from the movie Avatar, the one, whatever that one military looking guy is, he's like, you've got to obey the rules. And I just was like, oh yeah, like
these are Pandora's rules.
Yeah, Pandora's SDXL's rules. And so
gotta make that meme.
Yeah, that's a funny meme. Yeah, with my like 2 RAM sticks.
Yeah, but it's so important for us to understand internally, right? It's like, okay, what do the specs? I mean, I think the specs that we have on the docks are pretty solid for running jobs. But I mean, there's some models that we're talking about, these BioML models that we're talking about with these researchers. They need more VRAM than just like a 4090, right? We've got H100s on the network, or sorry, A100 on the network. We're targeting H100s too.
That's going into realms of using a multi-system orchestration, using multiple systems to handle different parts of the model. You'll have to split the model up, and then you'll have to feed parts of it to each card. Because I remember some of the numbers that were being thrown around. It was like incredible amounts of VRAM needed, and I'm just like, yeah, even on a Grace, even on like our Blackwells, you ain't like, that's not gonna fit. And so, like more complexity to the fire.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned multi-GPU, so we're going to have to talk about it for a second. I know this is something that we've been kind of constantly thinking about and talking about and stress testing internally as to like what makes sense. Because right now, one Lilypad miner one GPU can be added as one Lilypad miner. So if you have a motherboard and you have like 3 GPUs on there, the way that the architecture currently works is each GPU will be its own resource provider with its own Ethereum wallet address and its own, because the model gets loaded onto that card and run on that card. So look, I know like internally you've brought this up, and I think we're still figuring this out based on, really best practices in the AI ML world of like kind of what you just said, right? So if we did have a motherboard with a couple cards on it, what would that look like to just to sort of have those parallel processes running as like one resource provider? I don't know if we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves here, because I know we're still figuring this out. But yeah, what do you think that like makes sense?
Yeah, well, we'll certainly have to go deeper down the road of running multiple cards on a single system for jobs that make sense for that. For jobs that only require 12 gigs of VRAM, 2-3 cards, it can all fit on the first card. Like 3 cards is a bit overkill. But for models like we were talking about, like BioML models that take an incredible amount of VRAM, you've got to split those models up, feed them to the cards, load them in, run the processes, and then gain the outputs, and then put them together possibly. And so those jobs are very interesting to like it's going down that route is definitely the way I think we're moving.
It's like that's difficult to do just normally, right? And then we're saying, okay, well now orchestrate that in a distributed or decentralized compute network and send jobs, right? Like have a way for like a resource provider to set up and then earn rewards and prove that they're real and online and prove their power capacity, and then send them a job and make sure the client who does send that job can actually send it to the right, resource provider, send that job over our network, and then run it on that cluster and then send it back, right? So we're adding so much complexity on top of an already very complex situation.
Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. Like to be able to run a model that has to, like, if you have a model that you want to like work with as a student, as a researcher, really like the only way to gain access to like that compute is like having the money to just go out and either buy them. Like when you buy them, now you have this large piece of silicon that contributes to a lot of heat. It contributes to a lot of like electricity that you need to contribute to it. It needs internet. And so like it's super exciting to be able to like find some researchers who need the compute and who want multiple cards to run on, and to work with them. And we're like, okay, like, can we even like get this to run? Okay, we can get it to run. Well, like, what is like, how can we work together to find like how we can incentivize this to where you might pay, and it's incredible to be able to orchestrate that. Absolutely awesome.
I mean, what a cool problem to be working on, right? I mean, I think everyone can tell Logan and I are pretty like jazzed up about what we get to work on at Lilypad. So it's pretty exciting problems to be working on. Roderick asked, so on this multi-GPU topic, a cluster should be formed between workers with the same GPU model.
Oh yeah, right. Of course. Yeah. If you have a model that's like, I'll work with any and all GPUs, I'll be like, show me that model. Like, that would be. But yeah, there's a lot of work in understanding like homogeneous compute, power. Like, I have a GPU. I don't really care what type of GPU it is. It has so and so VRAM. Let's just try to load it. I feel like that's super interesting, super awesome. Like, not really worrying about what GPU having. Like, there's a lot of Alex and I. You and I have talked about it, Alex. Like, there's some storage platforms like that you can use for storing data, and like these platforms, when you set them up, it'll be like, I want all of the same hard drives. Every hard drive has to be the same make, the same model, and the same size. And when you build the array, all of it, like it's true NAS, wants the same stuff. But then we've got like these really insane, I think it's like Ceph or something, like, or we've got different protocols that are like, I don't really care how much storage is in the drive. I'll get the drive running and just like find a way to pool data into it. And I feel like that is maybe where we could get with GPUs, like, instead of, I have a model and I want the same, like, things are very picky right now. And so as we open it up, as CUDA has completely engulfed the world in like their beautiful software, we might be able to figure stuff like that out.
Yeah.
Diversity. Yes.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. And I mean, we haven't even, I feel like we're sort of on like the precipice of this whole new wave of hardware where you have companies like, yeah, of course, NVIDIA with Blackwell, Grok. I mean, there's a bunch of teams building like TPUs, building like specific AI inference chips. And that's something that I feel like we're still just in like day zero of, right? That's not even, I feel like the industry sort of reaches like a hardware limit based on what NVIDIA does basically. And then the software optimizes all the way up to that to go as hard as you can against that limit. And then new hardware shows up and then we start optimizing the software again. And so it feels like we're about to jump into a new sort of like round of software upgrades and improvements.
Yeah,
we've got so much compute coming.
Definitely. Yeah. And we're already seeing it like, with all of these awesome new tools. What's the one that everybody's talking about that is the big, like, it's the big fad right now? It's like the VS Code editor that is
Cursor AI.
Cursor AI. Yeah. Like, I feel like all of these tools are coming out of what you're saying.
Yeah, Cursor is very cool. Some people on our team swear by it. We were actually watching, there's a really great Lex Friedman interview with the founders of Cursor. I would definitely go check that out. They have very interesting perspective on things. Sidman is asking, can a cluster be formed by users from different countries which are nearby from one another? Oh, man.
I would say so. Yeah, Alex and I love to talk about this stuff, or at least I do.
I do, yeah.
So yeah, like I think these clusters, like certainly you can set up if you have you're gonna be limited by a LAN, a local area network. And if you have if you have some fancy way to spread a local area network across 10 kilometers from one site to another site, sure, that will maybe work depending on the latency between those two sites. But for the most part, this will be limited by this awesome thing called NVIDIA NVLink, which is essentially how you connect multiple GPUs, multiple systems to one another. It is honestly one of the coolest technologies ever. It started with, I think, back in the olden days, we had SLI, which nowadays a lot of people talk about SLI. SLI is not really a thing anymore. It's not really useful either. And VLink is this system to let GPUs communicate with one another. It starts at low-end systems, like being able to connect two like A100s, very large GPUs to one another. It starts at that system, a little connector that connects both cards on a motherboard. It starts there and then it ends all the way to $5,000 networking cards that run at 400, 600 gigabit per second. Using an optical cable now, PCIe, I think Gen 7 or 8 came out too, which is using it. But yeah, like the future, Sigmund, is like I have a closet in my house where all my GPUs are, and I have my computer on my desk. And instead of having a GPU in my computer, I have an optical cable, or I have an Ethernet, but it's not Ethernet. It'll be OM5. It'll be a fiber cable going from my computer to my GPU. And so
we were talking about that. I'm glad you brought that up. So I was trying to understand like the latency there, right? Because obviously so if the GPU is right next to the right next to the CPU, right on the motherboard, right? I mean, you are physically right there. And so, yeah, you were saying like the future here is we've got a big brain in the closet with like a whole rack of GPUs, and then your computer, in the living room or whatever in your office. So how does it not get affected by latency there? Like, how does that work?
Well, because the connection between this external device, which would be a networking connection, because that connection has gotten so ludicrously fast that there's no difference from having it from having the GPU, literally the time there's not much difference between having it a few light seconds, over there, compared to it's absolutely incredible. It goes to show you how slow our previous gear, like all of our older generation hardware, how much slower and how much how much.
Man, are you trying to get me to buy a new computer now? I feel like that's what's going on here.
every year, new.
Every year? I thought for you it's like every month.
Yeah, I just like the new stuff. I'm sorry.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Love it.
Sweet. Well, if anyone has any other questions, I think we're pretty much at time here. But definitely come check out the Discord. I mean, we have actually genuinely a lot of fun in there. Such great technical conversations, and then the community has been so awesome to, work together on building out the compute network. I mean, it's growing very quickly. We are getting jobs to run much more consistently. We're adding new modules coming up. The next phase of the incentivized testnet is focused on incentivizing module builders and app builders and developers. So keep an eye out for all the information about that. But because right now we are only providing Lilybits really to RPs and then to open source contributors and ambassadors. But moving forward, it's like, why have a big compute network if you don't have lots of people using it, right? And so I would say we have a pretty good amount of demand already, but we want to up those numbers. And so think about modules to build to add to the network. Think about front ends you can build. We want to see the next mid journey built on Lilypad, and we're here to support you. We've got an insanely brilliant team. And even some Lilybit rewards, maybe you make something cool, maybe even make a business out of it, and get some Lilybit rewards in the process. So do keep an eye out for that. Follow us all over on our socials, and I know we're participating in Hacktoberfest, and so a bunch of the community issues, I think all of them actually on the Lilypad main repo and some of the other repos are tagged as Hacktoberfest, and so I believe. That's sort of like a global thing on GitHub to sort of promote open source contributions. So go check that out and participate. And to be honest, I'm not sure much more about Hacktoberfest than that, but it sounds super fun. And then also, of course, we do an AMA every Wednesday if you're in sort of the West. So if you're in the US, maybe even in Europe, I believe. But every Wednesday we do an AMA. I think the next one next week I know is for sort of like our friends in Asia and friends in Australia. Okay, nice. Yeah, Steve added community bot to the fest. Yeah, thanks, Roderick. So those community bot issues are also part of Hacktoberfest. But the AMAs are always super fun, and we got one next week it's at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. So that's better for our friends on the other side of the planet. And then Logan and I will be back next week or the week after that, Wednesday, same time. So join us, bring your questions, bring hard questions, bring industry knowledge. Like I think, as you can tell, like we aren't just going to sit here and talk about our product all day long. Like we want to talk about the industry, we want to talk about where it's going, and then how how that's affecting us and how that's being implemented into our system. So the more that gets contributed, the better. But anyway, thanks so much, everybody, and we'll be seeing you on the next one.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good one.
Thanks, Logan.